Hi. What can you do in the simplest kitchens there are? Well, I keep things clean with an alcohol spray. Learned that during the pandemic. I just have a 70% thing of alcohol and 30% water. And I can buy alcohol in 5-gallon jugs. That's 19 liters of alcohol. And so I can use it for cleaning quite effectively. Today, we're going to see what we can do with an old apple. See how bad it is in there. I don't think it is, probably. Yep, looks great. It's all wrinkly on the outside. They would not want to sell this in a grocery store, probably. I just fucked up. I just messed up because that is not how I like to cut apples. I have a particular way of cutting apples, and I'll show you in a second what the other way is. I'm going to use this for compost. I don't have chickens right around here. They're 200 yards away. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my compost. Ideally, I would walk it down there, but it's fairly inefficient as far as the use of my time and energy. On the other hand, I need to walk around, so maybe it's an excuse to walk around. So that was one apple. I'm going to cut up the other one a different way. Okay, I'm going to cut this one so that I cut along the side of the core. I'm a little close to the core on that one. That was pretty good. And then I do 2 other cuts. So I cut into thirds. And that way, I can make less cuts than the other way. We always want to do less cuts, I think, and produce as little waste as possible. Now it is true that there's still apple on this core right here. See that? I cut it 3 ways, so there's still a bit. And it does seem like a shame to waste it. You could probably just toss it in a bowl. If you're enjoying a bunch of apples, and then afterwards sit around and eat the cores. Other thing you could do is collect the seeds out of it. So it could be that each person who's eating a core is also tasked, since now their mouth's been on it, with getting those seeds out of there. We should be collecting those every time. Now you might say, geez, Brian, eventually I have too many apple seeds. What do I do? Well, that's a great problem to have. Having too many seeds is a really good problem, because what it means is you can start to experiment in more odd ways with your plants. Now I have a lot of space here. So, I'm willing to grow a seedling and then put it out somewhere and see if it works. And less so, because they usually die. But the point is that it doesn't hurt to try and get things to grow, and seeds are the fundamental basis for that, right? That's like the building block. And so if we're not going to succeed at the seed level, then everything else is going to fail. And so we need to be everybody collecting a lot of seeds of anything we can and planting them where nothing else is growing. So there's places that are desert now that didn't used to be. There's no argument to nature here, like, you're disturbing nature. I don't think that planting apple trees is going to hurt a damn thing. Now it would be nice, of course, if we can get those apple trees in places where they'll actually be usable and grow. So in that sense, what I really want to do here is set up a vivero, a natural vivero that uses a nursery that uses far less resources and especially labor, even though labor right now here is cheap by comparison to some places. We need to figure out the right ways to do a system of a vivero so that it doesn't use plastic, in greenhouses, if we can avoid that. I can see reasons for certain things you can't do any other way to use a greenhouse. But if you can do it without any hardware, do it without any hardware. Like there's lots of solved plants here. I call them solved because we can have as much as we want of it. And we are. It's just sometimes there's a bit of labor to expand a plant, but like the rosemaries, we can just do direct in-ground cuttings right next to the plant, and there will be another rosemary there. We can literally make rosemary hedges. We can do anything we want, and it won't hurt the environment. The birds love it. It's fantastic. And so what we want is more plants like that we can just grow. Now, with those ones, we could also see if right next to that rosemary, we could do it in a 5-gallon bucket and not water it once. That'd be interesting. And have holes in the bottom of the bucket and everything. It gets to rain. And that'd be really interesting if it got really big, because then we could sell really big rosemary bushes for a lot more money. because what we have the advantage here of is being patient. So, for example, if we put, 20 rosemary cuttings in a bucket, and then we see which ones of those live well enough, and then we put up some of those in the ground, but we put some of those in buckets, and then the rosemary will grow in the bucket. It will take a long time. The price just keeps going up though, and if we really don't have to water it, and it's just sitting there, then we can do this in kind of anywhere really, because I want to show it off. One person might say, hey, that's ugly having all those buckets sitting there. But that is plant reproduction almost at its finest. The only thing better is direct in ground and it just grows right there. But I'm also trying to get plants out to people in various places. Now, one thought is, why should we bother selling them a bigger one? Why don't we sell them a small one? It'll grow into a big one if they care about it. Well, that's a good point. And partly I'm just thinking I have to have products here. But that is a very good point. I know we dug up a rosemary once and tried to move it and it died. And so I would like to try that more often, oddly enough, because I want to find out if that was a one-time fluke or if that is what is always going to happen, if they don't like to be transplanted. If that's the case, then the bucket thing works pretty well for getting them elsewhere. But still, the small plants seems like energy-wise it's better. So is it better to make a whole bunch of small plants? Probably. And a lot of people have waste gray water. So there's even the advantage of doing lots of rosemaries, for example, in cans. And you see this here. I bought plants here before. You see them in waste products. And that's because you just want the plant. And it isn't wrong to use the other kind. I've actually started using some square plastic ones now. But those were purchased to be that. And there's so much waste material that could serve the same function. Like a 2-liter Coke bottle. That's a really good one. You can grow a pretty big plant in a 2-liter Coke bottle. And, it's using what garbage there is. So in that case, I really would want to do is get people in Yotatiro. I would want their recycling, if I can get it. Various kinds of it. Cans are great. I love cans. I could set a day. I don't know how often they have recycling day here. But I could set a day just before recycling day in Yotatiro and go around to all my friends and say, hey, do you got any recycling I can have? And I only want glass bottles and cans. And I take newspaper. Yeah, I wonder if I'm supposed to have to buy that. I could ask my friends about how that would work here. Because people do buy plastic here, I think. They definitely buy metal. That's super common. So I've got my cool seeds here. I have to have near here a place to store these seeds. You're sort of watching as I'm doing this for the first time in this kitchen. There's a stove in there. There's no water here, so any water that I want to use, I have to haul in. There's more seeds down here. So I got lots of seeds off this. I guess at some point you get too many seeds, but if I can then try these seeds in different ways, even if I have a high failure rate, I get apples, and these apples may not breed true. Meaning, it may not be exactly the same as that, just a parent, just a baby. Babies are different than their parents. There's genetics mixing up here. But it's going to be in range. And I don't care. If I plant enough of these, I can find out if I can find a place in this property where this kind of apple can survive without any water or fertilizer. If I can figure that out, then it'll be infinite apples. And I should try every kind of apple variety and just, grow seedlings. Just keep growing seedlings big enough, stick them in the ground. And a really good hole. After they are 3 to 4 years old. They would spend 3 to 4 years in a bucket before they go out into the forest. I want to set up special spots that are more humid for seed beds, and I need to become an expert at seed germination. I do really good with low-tech methods. I guess the things I could do to improve that would be some things like having a warming bed underneath or something. I think we should choose times a year to start seedlings. And I think the best time of year, if we're willing to water them, see, that's the problem. I don't have enough staff here to do these things. I'm tempted to start some up here somewhere, but then I got to go up and down the stairs with pots and stuff. Ugh. It's not going as planned at all. I was going to cut this apple up because it was kind of old and mushy. It's not, well, it's a little bit, it's just kind of weak, you know. Like if I stuck it in some water, it would apple back up, but I'm okay with this. It's a semi-dry apple on the outside. It's actually a little bit more convenient to eat. It has a little bit less juice, I think. It's actually probably of maximum sweetness too, because it's older, but it's still really good. I'm really surprised. I usually think, you know, an apple should be more crunchy. This one still had a crunch. I really got to build a root cellar. So anyway, I don't have a seed box here. I did just have a little jar. I don't want a jar. I want these seeds to go in something that's open so that they can breathe and dry out. They're already pretty dry. So I'll have to do that. And then I got these. I was going to make an apple dish with these chili chipotles out of a can. But now I think I'll just eat this apple and cook something else. I'm setting up a kitchen back in there. I'll give you a tour of that in a bit. So yeah. That's like the worst cooking show there ever was. Worst cooking show. Remember what I was going to do now. So I've got a gas stove now, and I'm still trying to design like the perfect tiny hermit or monk kitchen, just for one individual. And which things should be done in that kitchen and which things should not be is kind of the question. What exact tools do you need, and not a single one more? And I can have videos to teach people how to prepare their own food, because you know, you just never know these days. I've met people who couldn't feed themselves because they were always fed. And so they should learn the basics. And there's no better way to learn the basics than only having the basics you can do. You know, there's no reason to break out the recipe books and make fancy dishes if we don't have our basics figured out, like the way we want to eat exactly. Even down to how we cut up the food and everything. In this case, I'm just going to do a test run. I've got my small cast iron skillet here, and I'm seeing what I can do on it, because it heats up faster, but it's still cast iron, and I really like cast iron. They actually have smaller ones than this. You can just do like 2 eggs in it and stuff. It's pretty great. So I'm looking at cooking for one, and I want to reduce all energy costs. I don't have any water up here, so every time I have to go somewhere to get water, it's going to be a pain in the ass. Every time I use water, it means I'm going to eventually have to get water. And so any use of water is very bad, unless we need to do it. But we're going to be wasting any. And I mean, that's a very extreme position to put yourself in, to learn then how we can cook properly. So I'm just going to put this directly into the pan. And there'll be people who say, no, you should preheat your pan. I will say, no, I'm not going to preheat my pan, because I get several benefits from putting it in the pan right now. One of those benefits is that I immediately have a place to put it that I don't have to clean up later. So I didn't put it in an intermediary bowl. Because an intermediary bowl, unless you use it all day, and maybe it's better then, but you know, you wouldn't be doing that for one. So the way you cook for one has got to be radically different than for groups. I have all these great ideas about how to cook for big groups. I want to design a whole kitchen around that, a big solar kitchen. But in this case, it's just me. Now, if I did have a GoSun solar oven, those are really fantastic. They can actually boil stuff. I mean, it is hot, hot, hot. And it's in an evacuated tube. I use those for heating water here, and I want to use them for heating buildings as well. But GoSun, the company, has made this really cool tube that has a vacuum around it so it doesn't lose any heat. It's basically the magic solution for outdoor cooking in the sun right now. I suspect it would even work in cloudy weather. Don't know, but you can check their website, probably gosun.com or something. I guess I'll chop up this potato too. This potato's already started to sprout. Some people say don't eat them after that, but it's not turned green. I guess if it turns green, then there's some iodine problem or something. So I don't peel anything. Like, peeling potatoes has got to be the colossally dumbest thing I've ever heard of, because it doesn't sound that fun. I've never done it. And a lot of the nutrients in a potato are in the skin. So you're throwing away like half the nutrients or something, or maybe even more. I don't know. I'm going to cut this potato up really quite finely, and I really should have put the potato in first and then cooked that and then cut up the onion. That's because potato takes longer to cook. So now I'm going to have to overcook my onion unless I stick it into something else. I'll do that, just so that I get the effect I really want with the food. The idea with that is you put your longer, harder to cook stuff in first, so it gets some time to cook, and then you put your more delicate stuff in later. Like if you had mushrooms that you want to preserve the flavor on them, then you would definitely put those in last. Or maybe I think with mushrooms, they have such a unique flavor that I really don't think just dumping them in other dishes is that great. I think that they should be the focus of the dish, because they're very seasonal here. They're kind of exotic and cool, so that's a great thing. All right, so I messed up and put the wrong thing in first. Oh well. These are relatively small pieces here, and I'll do these in a little bit of oil. And that's another thing is I'd like to do things with less oil. There's they call them like circulation ovens, and they have really small ones now, and those are kind of cool. What I want to do is set those up though, using an evacuated tube solar hot water heater to heat the box, the oven, and get it like really hot, so that you could cook with. And then if there was a fan in it, that would essentially make a convection oven, right? Like they named these new ones something, air fryers, right? And then you're basically kind of frying it without oil is the idea. Neat idea, but I'd like to use the same principle and just kind of change it, with a heat source is, because those are electric. That's not convenient for me. But if it was solar, and you had the convection thing to distribute the heat better, then it's just an extra fan, as far as I can tell. And it doesn't really matter. You could just run the fan, and it would probably help immensely. Bug's bugging me. I will have to figure out how to clean things up here. I think in a lot of cases, if I just wipe them down a little bit, that'll probably be good enough for a while. That's pretty not a good idea, according to most people probably, but oh well. All right, I'm ready to cook, I guess. That's all I'm doing. Oh, now I was going to put a chipotle in there at some point. And this is a canned one. It's really silly I'm using canned ones. I guess I could use dried ones and I'd have to rehydrate them. But I'm probably paying a lot more for how much I'm getting here. Oh, it's really good. And powerful. So these are kind of like soggy chipotles in a sauce. This has got to be more expensive than any other method. Also, it's messy. I don't like that because I don't want to clean things up. I don't have any water, right? I have to carry all the water up here. And so I would suggest I would not want to use this up here ever. I'm going to use it this time. Actually, maybe if I stuck it in here. But I think in terms of just packaging, that rehydrating peppers is a better idea. It could be that every day you rehydrate some peppers, enough for people. Be odd if you could pick up it like at the store. just some rehydrated peppers. I'm going to actually keep this right here. I think I'll use a food wrap. I have food wraps, just exactly for this kind of thing. Well, that's great. That's my first official use of a food wrap, I think, is what it will be. It's great stuff. It's really hot. Oh, very spicy. Yummy, yum. So I've got the potatoes here. Cut up. A little bit of water I carried up. And I'm going to put that in there because I know they're going to take a little while to cook. And I'm almost against potatoes, kind of, which is really weird because I love them. But they use so much energy to cook. Even if you were doing solar, it's still an energy system that it's a resource that you're using, and it takes longer. And so, I don't know. That's fine. We can build solar kitchens where energy is more abundant at a cheaper cost. But I don't know. I mean, I think we should consider that with everything we have on the menu. I have a spreadsheet of every food we eat here that tells about every food, and then I need to investigate more about different ones. But I could look at which ones use how much energy to cook. Now, I already put this on there, the stuff in the pan. I did not preheat it. I'm going to cover it so it maintains its heat better. I've got my onions here ready to go when those are cooked, or almost cooked. I've got a little bit of olive oil here, which I think I'll start using when I put in the onions. And I'm probably going to try to dry out the potatoes. I'm going to hope that they're cooked by the time that they're drying out, so that I don't have all this liquid. I just like to burn the liquid off. That's my goal. All right, I guess we'll be waiting on that for a while. Notice I use this guy. This is a cool lighter thing. I did not get refills for this. I bought refills, I thought, for one. They never seem to work. So it's kind of fake that you can refill them, I think. Unless somebody can show me how to do it. I don't know how to do it. But I still used a spark on it. Oh, it still has gas. Wait a minute. Normally it doesn't work. Anyway, I just been lighting it with a spark. Just works great. So this is not garbage, in other words, if the flint still works. So don't throw out something just because it doesn't work completely. Just change its use a little bit. This is going to take forever. I just brought all this crap up from downstairs, and that's going to take forever. God damn it. I'm going to forget that I'm cooking, and I'm going to walk off somewhere. That's the worst thing about cooking. I do it all the time. I could try out some of this kimchi here. That might be fun. This kimchi is a year old. It was made just after I got back to the forest from town. And I noticed that I had closed it after I ate some. And it never molded. Never went bad. And it smells great. It smells just like kimchi should. That's fantastic. That means we stored healthy, fresh, raw vegetables. Not raw anymore because we fermented them. So it's not quite raw, but we didn't use any energy really except chopping them up and sticking them in containers. If we could get really good at that, then we could actually store, make a bunch of vegetables, and then any time of the year that the vegetables are more costly, we eat this. Or it could be an emergency food. Like we could always just make all the kimchi a year ahead of time. Make year-old kimchi like the ideal. That's like the tastiest. And the reason to do that is to make sure you have enough food stored up. So if there's an interruption in the food supply, you have a food in process that you can actually eat at any time. That's probably the best way to be food prepared. Right there. And it's super healthy. I mean, I'm eating raw vegetables. Not everybody likes it just like that. Like, we make ours a little spicy and pretty tangy. But we could make some that's fairly bland. And then people can do something to it if they want to. But the point is the fermentation. The first kimchi I ever tried was a Korean kimchi, I believe, out of a jar, and I did not like it because it was way too overwhelming, and I didn't know if it was supposed to be a condiment or what, but it certainly wasn't edible just eating it. And so I thought I didn't like kimchi. Okay, this is boiling now. That's a good sign. And then I notice it's way hotter on one side. Ouch, this is hot. We have very questionable tools here. Only one burner works on this stove. Yeah, this was a little bit off center. So, and I think that's what I want to go for with the design of kind of the hermit kitchen, right? I want to have it be a one burner thing if they have a burner. And if they have a wood stove, it's a very small wood stove that they feed with many twigs and branches. I think that it should be made so that it's fed with branches like this big. All ones that you could just snap off. Because I've got places with an excess of those right now. And the amount I have and that gets produced by the forest would certainly feed a number of stoves quite easily, just with the most minimal effort. I mean, probably bunches. You know, there's a way for you to turn this down. Maybe I should do that. Okay, I do have a way to turn this one down. Now I moved too far this way. Actually, I want that to boil off. So I'll leave this off, I guess. Very simple setup here. I will improve it. Definitely. All right, well, that's all I got for right now. I'll check in with you later when the potatoes are more done. I forgot to mention that I'm putting garlic in there as well. Not all of this, but probably like 2 cloves, which is a lot for that small a volume of food. But I like garlic. You know, I'm a big fan. Oh, I forgot. I want to put garlic in it. So, here we go. Let's chop that up. This garlic's not the newest. I would like to figure out how to do garlic better here, just like everything else. So let's think about it. Well, first off, I've started growing it in buckets, and that's a good start. It's a highly controlled environment where the pocket gophers won't get it. So that's a lovely idea. I could try growing in other spots and see if the pocket gophers even like it. It could be it's a crop that they don't like, which then would be a crop I would be even more interested in growing. Quite a bit more. I don't like cutting up garlic. I'll tell you right now. I just don't like it. Anyway, the point is we can figure out how to grow it. We'll grow it because it's kind of expensive. I think it's maybe $6 a kilo. It's $3 and something a pound or something. It's not outrageous, but it's an unnecessary cost if we can grow it, and we might live in exactly the kind of climate where it grows really well. It could be that we should go crazy growing all the kinds of garlic we get access to and set up multiple beds around the property and grow them with the rainy season and see if they like the rainy season here. If they like the climate, if we can figure out how to grow them, then they're bulbs, so they're a major investment. They take a long time to get going, but that's what we do: is we buy lots of garlics. We would label what they are, where they're at, and then we'd be producing lots and lots of garlic here. We'd find out what types do better, set each type up in a different microclimate, and track exactly which one does well and which one doesn't. So they'll be side by side, and we're marking them with stakes and everything. And then, because they don't spread around a lot, they would cross-pollinate though if we do that. So that's kind of an issue. Maybe it's better to set them up separate beds first. I think, yeah, that's probably best. And that's just to see if it works. See if that particular thing works at all. I do like the idea of setting up a garden, which is the all garlics garden, I guess we would call it. And just plant, intersperse every kind of garlic that there is in there. Every garlic we can get our hands on. We always put at least a few heads in there. And not all in the same spot. And the idea is that they'll cross-pollinate with other ones, and produce different kinds of garlic if we were growing garlic by seed, which we don't normally do. But I really like the idea of breeding garlic that wants to live here. And it's like genetic engineering, but it's actually genetic selection. It's not like genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is actually evil and scary, and don't think I'm a dumbass for saying that. I know what it is. I know why I think that it's a scary thing, and if you want to comment on that, then you should watch some other video where I talk more at length about it. I'm not interested right now. So I got my other garlics here. I don't have a bowl for them. I think that those are supposed to go into like little ceramic bowl, and it's really cute or something. I don't like cutting up garlic so much. It is ridiculous. The way I cut it up, just so you know how I'm doing it now, is I cut the end off, the stem end, where it was attached, a little flat thing. Then I peel anything off I can with that. That's great. Squish it with the flat of my knife, and then the other stuff usually comes off if you squished it well. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on YouTube about how to process garlic, and the reason there is so much is because it's annoying. It's a pain in the ass. So there's a couple of ways I can see to solve that. First, we can solve it here at the table, in the place, like cutting it better, shaking it in a jar, doing all these other things. I would rather it be upstream. I would rather the people who harvest from the garlic gardens take that garlic, and en masse, they take their big baskets of garlic, and that they process it all by the best method that there is for large amounts of garlic. We do it in big batches, and then we chop it all up in tiny pieces we can. Maybe not, actually. You could have a couple different sizes, and then you put it into something else. Now, I think I bought one that was in water, and it was probably really sterile when they did it, and that's why it was good. The problem is I leave things out for quite a while, and the truth is garlic doesn't go bad that well either. So I did just use it that way. So we can try that. Certainly water is the most basic thing. However, if we were to add it with something else that we could buy in bulk or we could produce that would preserve it, that would also be great. And in that regard, I think there's several experiments to be done, or things to look up on the internet, because other people have done these things mostly, I would hope. Like, what happens if we put garlic in vinegar? I bet you the goodness of the garlic stays in there really well, and then you can use it for something. I don't know if those flavors go too well together. I do know that olive oil, or an oil, some kind of oil, and these would do great together, and I think that they would last. I don't even think you can do experiments, but I don't even think you'd have to, like, boil these or blanch them or anything. I don't think you have to do a damn thing. Oh shit, I'm cooking. God damn it. This is why I'm a bad cook. Now it's even more dangerous because I've got stuff in the other room on the stove. That's very bad. That's my big problem. Okay, I got back. Oh, nothing's burnt. That's good. Very good sign. And let's see if they're soft. What I'll do is I'll just kind of crush one with my spatula thing. It crushed somewhat easily, yeah. The thing is, I don't like them to be too hard. It really bothers me. That's probably the most common thing I don't like in a meal, and I just overlook it, of course. I'm not going to get hung up on it or anything. But I wonder if I put a little bit of flax in here, what would happen? I have to read about flax. I have flax. It supposedly is really good for you. It has omega-3 somethings or some kind of officially good crap. All right, I think I'm at the point where I'm ready to do this. I should have put oil in earlier, but I should have put in a vegetable oil, actually. And the reason for that is because I have it really hot. And if I used olive oil, then its smoke point would be wrong, and that would be bad. So this is just some other kind of vegetable oil from Nutrioli. Oh, it's soy. I don't even like soy. But I've got this in front of me right now. And I guess the idea behind oil, isn't, well, what it does is it helps with a, what is it? The Maillard effect, is that it? I forget. Anyway, it helps transfer heat to the food better, and it gets in there and cooks it up. So I like that. I'm very happy with that oil in there. The olive oil has if I was going to put it in, I wouldn't put it in there. It's too hot. I'm going to put the onions in now. I have no idea if this is going to be any good or not. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next either. It doesn't really matter. I think hermits should have very few options for cooking, and that some things would get brought to them, and they would have a supply of some things. But the less contact we have with a hermit, the better. You do want to check in occasionally. All right, so that's going great in there. I kind of feel like I should stir this around. I don't know why. All right, what else is going in this thing? Oh, the garlic. Now, I didn't put the garlic in yet. I think, I'm going to wait till my onions start looking a little bit done. And then I'll put the garlic in, and it'll be the least cooked thing in there. And that's because I really like that garlicky flavor. I also think that there's, I don't know what the chemical changes are, but with a lot of really good foods that are really good for you, if you overcook them, you may actually remove the attributes that make them good. So, ultimately raw food is the way to go, but I don't feel like eating a raw potato. And I guess I eat raw onions in salads, right? So I did eat a raw onion once, just like an apple, and it was a very unpleasant experience, actually. I don't recommend it. Try it. You might like it, but so yeah. Maybe I'll let that sit for a second, see what happens to it. Tempted to put a dash more water in there. Just don't want it to burn. It's annoying. This is a cast iron pan, and those actually are fairly non-stick. What's really non-stick about them, I mean, I find stuff still gets stuck to mine, but then I take it out and I do wash it off with water, and the fact that shit comes off pretty easily is great. Because on a different kind of pan, if I was to treat it this way, it would be really, really hard. And so, it doesn't act exactly like a non-stick pan, but it gets you enough in that direction. And it gets you away from that Teflon crap or any other weird material that they want you to ingest. Don't let your food hit hot things that are of unknown nature. Teflon being a great example. There's a documentary on that called The Devil We Know. Check out that documentary. It's about the people who work in the Teflon plant area in that whole town, and everybody's contaminated. But then it turns out there's actually the bad ingredient in Teflon is all through the world, everywhere, in every one of us. It really gets around. That's the level at which we are contaminating things. And we should be very, very concerned about that, I think. Yeah, this is nice. It's not getting burned on there. So don't use weird metals. Now this is iron, cast iron. You can kind of tell from the name. And you do need iron in your body. I don't know if you only use these for a really long time if you would get too much iron. Like, I don't know if there's a symptom for that. Guess I should look it up. It's looking great. So my onions are a little bit soft. I have no space to work in. It's very annoying. And so in goes the garlic. That garlic, go in. So I was mentioning about the pre-processing of garlic and how I want that to work. If we grow it, and then, that's going great. If we grow it, then I want to have the people who harvest it process it and put it into jars of varying sizes. Seriously, we can reuse jars for that from other products. This is not a dangerous, tricky ingredient. It's pretty safe. So we don't have to be as food paranoid as we would with some things. And then that feeds the Bosque, garlic, all the time. Because there's probably an optimal time to harvest, right? I would assume so. I had to read up on garlic and stuff and how to grow it. In fact, I have a friend, actually, who used to be a garlic grower. I should drop her a note. See if she can recommend a book or something. I usually don't bother people for their knowledge, like with dumb questions. I want to bother them later when I have really smart questions. So I don't like to go to people who know things that I know, who know things that I want to know, and I don't want to go to them and then ask them to teach me. That's, I think, rude. I think it's very insulting, and people should know how to read. Of course, if you don't know how to read, then learn to read. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll read up as much as I can about garlic farming at a small scale, and like what time of the year you do things, and particularly in a place like mine where it rains in the summer. That's my real question: is in a place where it rains in the summer, when do I harvest my garlic and divide it? Because if I understand correctly, you usually aren't doing it from seed. Although if I had that cool garden where it was a all garlic garden to mix them, to specifically make genetic mixes, that would be really fun. But in most cases, it'd be one species. We would probably even figure out what the exact right time of year for that species is to pick it up and harvest some, plant the rest. That's, I assume, what you do. I'm just guessing. All that garlic then, it could go into a root cellar, and that's fine. But for use here, I really like the idea of just having it. This is a case where centralization makes more sense. It does not make sense for everyone everywhere to be chopping up garlics when they could just go refill their container of already processed garlic and whatever else they'd like to go with it, like water, oil, probably not vinegar, but try it. We could even make weird mixes of things. We could have, like, if it was vinegar, then any vinegar that we have anyway should always be unpackaged, infused with eggshells that were boiled once. We boil them first, pulverize them completely, put them in vinegar until they dissolve. We just have a big jar that we use just for that. I think one of the carboys we can even use. I think making calcium-rich vinegar sounds brilliant. We probably want to try with a gallon jug first, but all we're doing is just filling it up to 3/4 of the way with vinegar, and then starting to dump in as much of the calcium-rich eggshells that are pulverized and sterilized, and those are going into the vinegar. Those just disappear. They dissolve. Now you have a calcium-fortified vinegar from a waste product, your eggshells, because we end up with a lot of eggs. If everybody eats an average of even one a day, they add up, and they're a great biological product that's very rich in nutrients. So, and we want to have calcium, so that's our natural calcium supplement, and it just works out great together. So that salad oil that we use that has vinegar could be calcium-fortified vinegar, easily. Oh, this is now out of everything. It's definitely, some of it's kind of almost frying and stuff. Well, it is frying. And I kind of like that. I don't mind if it's all the same texture. I like it if there's pieces that are different within it. I think that's about done, though. Now, one question is, do I want to add any last-minute spices? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe I'll try a piece of potato. I'm going to shut it off, though. Right now, I will still defend propane as being a viable option for our purposes here. There's plenty of time not to use propane later, and labor right now needs to be focused on building for the future. We have an emergency. This is our emergency system. We're going to use it while it's available, while we're preparing systems that are fully solar, and we never need to have propane again. We want to phase propane completely out of our lives. The only thing I use it for is cooking. I do not use it for heating or anything. I don't have a propane refrigerator. There's lots of propane things. But this is the way I want to do it, It's continuing to cook in there, by the way, because that pan is so hot. Let's see, that potato I just ate. I'm going to try another one. I was busy thinking about other stuff. Potatoes are done. That's a good start. This dish doesn't have a lot of zing to it, Not a lot of zing. I think the solution for that is right here. It's more of that chipotle sauce. I have many options I could go with, but that's the one that's sitting right in front of me. I already put some chipotle in there before, so I'm just going to try and get a little bit of this sauce out of here. Yeah. And spread it around. I don't think you need much. That looks a little bit nicer. And I used to think, a couple days ago, when I was setting up this kitchen, that I wanted to then eat out of this pan. And it is true that that'll keep the food warm for longer. As a hermit guy, I'm actually going to move some of it out because I want to eat it pretty soon. I'm hungry. That's the only reason I'd be cooking. I'm not doing this for the heck of it. You know, I'm hungry. So, and that's, you know, if you live the way I do and you have the attitudes about food that I do, sometimes you might not eat for a few days. And that's one advantage of the hermits making their own food, by the way, is they're making their own food and they're not affected by anyone else's schedule. And if they're really there to escape from everything and everyone for a time and just be with trees and themselves, then that's actually a benefit to really actually not have to deal with anyone, to be completely food and water independent for the period of time that they're going to be there. And that would imply that we actually have enough waters based on our estimate of what they would be using for their whole time there. Now that's a pretty fancy monk hut. It could be done. And then they could have a 2-burner stove. Why not? A 2-burner stove is way better. They could then be making their tea at the same time that they're cooking something else. And it reduces in half, potentially, or almost in half, maybe reduced by a third, the amount of time they have to spend cooking. Now, we're going to give them a lot of food that they don't need to cook at all. They're mainly a raw food diet is awesome. But we'll have a few other things that they can cook. And I'll have to tweak the actual menu, and I can have more than one menu. In fact, that's the way to go, is here's your menu of choices that are binary or 3 options or something. Check which one. It should be a Google form for filling it out to what is your hermit style. How do you want to live? There'll be a link to this probably in the description below if I put this up. So I want them to have exactly what they need and nothing more. I did today decide that there was a distinction between different types of hermits. And this gets into the menu thing, because there could be a king hermit hut, a queen hermit hut, a squire hermit hut, something like that. Styles of huts, mainly related to what they're used for. A king being good for a couple, or a person who really wants to have a bunch of space for some reason. But I mean, a really fancy hermit hut could have like a little courtyard, its own courtyard. So you could actually sit out in the sun with the wall all around you. And then maybe the hut's uphill from that, and you go up there and you sit on your porch and you look over the whole area, including your little yard right there. It's an odd thing because that's not generally how I want to build buildings here. But I'm you know, in these tiny huts, this is a case where it's not one of the big buildings I'm envisioning with, you know, over 100 people in it and stuff. It's for 1 person or 2 people. And so I have to figure out how to do those really, really well. I've thought also the hut cluster, which is kind of like 4 huts in one place, which is way more efficient. They can all share a toilet easily. They can all share a campfire. They can all share a kitchen. That's really important. And we can make the kitchen load really light for those kind of kitchens. So while hermits will be cooking all their own food, potentially, that's one of their options. Another option is they could get it delivered. We could have a box in every spot that's rodent proof. That's hard to do. Or use bins or something. But we drop off a bin. They fill it with whatever things they're supposed to return if they're getting fed, right? And then we drop off another bin with other stuff in it. On the form, it should also ask how the hermit would like to handle those transfers. Would they like to not see the person at all? Which I don't really like. I like a just daily brief sighting of a person. So I don't think I'm actually going to offer that. Once a day, and hopefully not more than once a day. That would be bad. But we drop by and somebody says hello, And then you can pick on the form which style of hello do you want. Like, do you want to give a quick report on how you're doing to this person? Doesn't have to be videoed. In fact, probably shouldn't be. Yeah, it shouldn't be. You can always video your own stuff if you want to. So, and so basically, you know, are you up for a short chat, or would you just want the least possible interaction? Those are the range of your options, and there's sub options within that. Other things about the Hermit experience, you know, we could offer prepackaged suggestions of what you should do with your time, and I think we'll do that. We'll just suggest some stuff, but really all that you need to know is that you want to be in the woods by yourself and not be in a camping situation where it's uncomfortable completely, and not be in a place that's dangerous or unknown, and you just want to be there, and that's what I'd like to provide. So you kind of can design your own experience. And our suggestions are just suggestions, kind of. Of course, like anyone here, there's rules about how things work. You cannot come here, for example, as a monk or as a hermit, and then go and join in the other activities of somebody else's group. There are some groups here that are cohesive and they're a single group. There's other groups that are mixed. There's a lot of stuff going on around here, but if you come as a hermit, you stay as a hermit. After your time as a hermit is up, then we'll talk about you joining anything if we want that. You apply for that. That's a different role. So if you're a hermit, you've been accepted for a very specific role, and you'll be a hermit. That's what you're going to do. So that's because we need to make our plans about, man, I'm hungry. We need to make our plans about food and activities and what things are going on at that time. And so you can't just switch tracks anytime you want. Sorry. So now, oh, there it is. This got way better, by the way. The chipotle was a brilliant idea. It's really good. It's a simple dish. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. That's one thing I don't like about cooking and cookbooks and stuff, is that I think that the people writing cookbooks obviously like food, and they have a lot of time to make food, and so they don't mind if there's a lot of steps, it seems like. And in fact, they almost seem to take pride in it. Like, I think some people are like, ooh, this is such a complex dish to make. And it's like, well, great, and some of those are great. Maybe we should make them sometimes. But I really want to make sure our diet, for the most part, is made of things that are easy to cook with a small amount of energy and are super healthy for us as individuals and even for the communities around us. You know, like the sources of the food and stuff. Oh, this is great. Oh, it's kind of hot still. Too hot, too hot. Oh. Well, hopefully these videos, as extemporaneous as they are, is that even the right word? No. As, what's the right word for that? Maybe it is. As improvised as they are, at least can serve as a set of notes that I'm making to myself about what I want to write about more, what do I want to investigate more, what I'd like to create. And I'm always interested in feedback from other people about what parts of this project I have that that they're particularly interested in. And, you know, please do engage with my ideas. They're not all great. Fix them, please. You know, they're free anyway. So, the experiments will continue. That was a great kitchen experience. That was my first tiny kitchen experience. We'll call it tiny kitchen. Everybody likes tiny houses. Well, tiny kitchens and tiny huts too. So, yeah. I guess that's it for this one. Maybe I'll do some other cooking some other time. Because I would really like to teach monks how they can just live in this really simple way. And it might even work in the city. It might be good in your general life. It's good in my general life. I don't waste my fucking life cooking. That's for sure. Oh, wow.